Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The girl in the freezer. She couldn't scream. Her mouth was frozen shut, literally. Her lips were dry, cracked, and sealed together with ice. Her eyelashes had clumped and frozen to her cheeks. Every breath came out in small, ragged clouds, a vapor. But the worst part wasn't the cold, it was the hand. There was a hand inside the freezer with her. Emily pressed herself back against the metal coils lining the wall, the freezing steel burning her spine through her pajama top. Her knees were pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tight around them, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. It was so cramped she could barely move, but her eyes, wild, unfocused, were locked on the thing in the corner. The hand didn't belong. At first, she'd thought it was just a piece of frozen meat, a roast, a weirdly shaped slab of something buried under a frosted tarp. But then she noticed the fingernails, long, cracked, and blue. The skin was an awful grayish-purple like a drowned corpse. The fingers were twisted, curled in like they'd seized up in their final moment, reaching for something, or someone. It hadn't been there when she first woke up. She remembered darkness, then silence, then the bitter cold, tightening around her like a shroud. She tried to scream, but the silence swallowed her whole. Her throat was too dry, her voice wouldn't rise. Panic took hold as she realized where she was. A chest freezer, the kind you see in basements or garages. She had no idea how she got there. The last thing she remembered was lying on a sleeping bag in Mandy's living room, watching a horror movie with her friends. Now she was here, alone, trapped. With the hand, she didn't dare move. The cold had seeped into her bones. Her fingers were too numb to feel, but worse than the physical pain was the creeping, slithering realization that she wasn't alone. She hadn't imagined the whisper. Emily. It had come from the left side of the freezer, behind the walls, not from outside where someone might have opened the lid, not even from the hand, from inside the insulation, as if someone was buried inside the walls, calling her name. Emily, she gasped. A soundless breath. Her heart slammed against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Then the fingers moved. Just the tiniest twitch. Like a dead spider caught in a breeze. One knuckle cracked, then another, then the whole hand flexed, slow and stiff, as if waking from a long sleep. She squeezed her eyes shut. Maybe she was hallucinating. Maybe the cold was making her see things. People imagined weird stuff when they were dying, didn't they? A soft scraping sound made her eyes fly open. The hand was closer. She flailed, banging. Her shoulder against the side of the freezer. The pain was sharp, real. This wasn't a dream. Her body was too cold to lie. Her knees struck something, a plastic bag of meat, frozen solid. She grabbed it and hurled it at the hand. It thudded against the far wall. The hand was undisturbed. But her movement had knocked something loose. Her phone. It slid from her pajama. In pocket. She snatched it up, fingers fumbling. The screen lit up, battery dead. A useless, glassy slab. Still she tried, holding it to the top, shaking it, hoping some stray signal or phantom percentage would get her out. Nothing. Another whisper. Emily, oh, come closer. No, 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 no. The hand twitched again. She shuffled back, but there was nowhere left to go. Her spine was jammed against the wall. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. The air inside the freezer was growing thinner, like it was being sucked out. And then, light. The lid flew open. Warm air rushed in like a wave. She couldn't help it. She screamed a hoarse, guttural sound and launched herself upward into the blinding garage light. She tumbled out onto the floor, wheezing, sobbing, the shock of warmth almost painful. She heard voices, people shouting. Mandy's mom, maybe her dad. A neighbor, someone wrapped her in a thick blanket. Someone else called 911. Warm hands held Her face, her shoulders kept her from shaking too hard, but her body wouldn't stop trembling, not from the cold, from the terror, because when she looked back, the hand was gone. No one believed her. At the hospital, they said she had mild frostbite and early hypothermia, that she was incredibly lucky. "Another 15 minutes and you'd have been brain dead," the nurse said, almost cheerfully. A cop came by, asked her if she'd had any arguments with Mandy or if she had a history of sleepwalking. Emily didn't. She'd never sleepwalked in her life. The official story? She'd wandered into the garage during the night, opened the freezer, climbed in, and somehow shut the lid behind her. Everyone said the same thing. It was just a terrible accident. But Emily knew better because she remembered what the whisper had said. "Come closer." She tried not to talk about it. She stayed home from school for 2 days, slept with her mom in the same bed, refused to go near the kitchen freezer, let alone the garage. Her friends texted her constantly, Mandy especially, asking what happened, if she was okay. Emily ignored them all. She was trying to forget, to pretend it had been some kind of fever dream. But then, 2 nights later, she woke up at 3:14 a.m. Her room was freezing, not cold, freezing, like she'd stepped into a walk-in refrigerator. Her breath puffed out in clouds. Her window was shut. The heater was on. There was no explanation. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, and turned toward the sound that had woken her. Click. The closet. Your door was open, just an inch. A slow breath of air hissed out, curling across the floor. Her nightlight flickered. She stared at the door. And then a hand, pale, blue-tinged, grotesque, slowly curled around the edge of the door. Twitching, flexing, reaching, she screamed. Her mother burst into the room seconds later and flicked on the light, but the hand was gone. The room was warm. Again, no one believed her. Again, her mother said it was PTSD, that the trauma had affected her sleep. The doctor prescribed something to help her rest. A mild sedative, he said. No more nightmares. But it wasn't a nightmare, and Emily knew it wasn't over. That weekend, she finally answered Mandy's texts. "Mandy, I feel sick about." "What happened? Please talk to me." "Emily, your garage freezer. Has anyone ever said anything weird about it?" Mandy, "Weird like how?" Emily, "Like voices, cold spots, seeing things." Mandy, "Why would you say that?" Emily hesitated, then typed, "Emily, I don't think I walked in there. I think something pulled me in." Mandy didn't reply for a full 5 minutes. Then, "Mandy, I didn't want to scare you before, but..." Mandy, "A girl who used to live here before. Us disappeared." Mandy, "Her name was Julia. She was 12. They never found her." Mandy, "But my mom told me once that they searched the house and even tore up the garage." Mandy, "She joked that maybe Julia hid in the freezer." Mandy, "But she wasn't joking." Emily felt her blood go cold. Emily, "Can you send me the blueprints? Do your house? It took hours." Mandy had to ask her dad for old files from the builder. When Emily finally got the PDF and opened it on her laptop, she stared at the garage layout for a long time. There was the main freezer, and then something else. A second, sealed compartment, hidden behind the drywall, labeled cold storage. Decommissioned. The document was stamped, condemned, do not access cliffhanger. Emily convinces Mandy to explore the wall behind the freezer, but what they uncover isn't just a sealed room. It's a shrine, a place of ritual sacrifice, and someone's been maintaining it recently. The freezer room. The next time Emily saw the freezer, she was holding a crowbar. Mandy was shaking beside her, phone flashlight jittering across the wall behind it. They stood in the garage just after sunset, the sky outside bleeding into grey. Mandy's parents had gone out for dinner, said they'd be back by 10. That gave the girls 3 hours. Emily had barely slept since the night she saw the hand, in her closet. not real sleep. She dozed in fits and bursts, waking up drenched in sweat, convinced she heard scratching behind the walls. Sometimes she swore she smelled meat, rotting meat. Her mom blamed the nightmares. Her doctor increased her dosage, but none of it helped. The only thing that made sense was the blueprint, because there was something behind the freezer. According to the file Mandy's dad had casually dug out of the house history folder, the garage had once contained 2 cold storage units side by side. The second was bricked in during a renovation in the early 2000s, after the previous owner, a butcher, passed away. Danger of collapse, the report said. Keep sealed. Emily didn't believe it for a second. Are you sure you want to do this? Mandy whispered, glancing nervously at the garage door. We could get in serious trouble. You saw the plans? Emily cut in. There's a sealed room behind here. That freezer doesn't even back against the outer wall. Look, she pointed. Sure enough, there was a half-foot gap between the back of the freezer and the concrete barrier, more than enough space for a hidden compartment. And you said another. Girl disappeared, Emily continued. Julia, 12 years old, vanished from this house. If that's not enough to start asking questions, what is? Mandy swallowed hard and nodded. Okay, let's just do it quick. They pulled the chest freezer forward, inch by inch, metal legs screeching against the concrete, revealing a section of old drywall. It was different from the rest. A darker color, water-stained. There were 2 deep vertical seams, just wide enough to indicate the shape of a narrow doorway. Emily ran her fingers over the center. Her nails caught on something, a faint indentation hidden beneath a layer of paint. Letters. She scraped at it with her fingernail until the paint flaked away. Julia carved into the wood. Mandy gasped. Oh my God! Emily didn't hesitate. She wedged the crowbar into the seam and yanked. The wall groaned, then cracked. A loud, dry snap rang out as the old wood splintered. The top panel gave first, then the bottom. After 3 brutal pulls, Emily wrenched the entire section loose, and a gust of freezing air spilled out of the darkness. It smelled like blood, not the metallic, clean kind you get from a paper cut. This was old, thick. It curled into their lungs like smoke. Mandy dropped her flashlight. It clattered to the floor, spinning, light bouncing wildly across the narrow space inside. A hidden room. Maybe 6 feet deep, 4 feet wide. The walls were covered in old, yellowing insulation. No shelves, no wiring, just hooks. Dozens of meat hooks screwed directly into the wall beams. Some were rusted, some were clean. One still had something hanging from it. Mandy stumbled back, covering her mouth. Is that a dress? Emily stepped forward. Her hands were numb, but not from the cold. She stared at the thing hanging limply from the hook. A child's dress, pale blue, faded, but still whole. Beneath it, tucked into the corner of the room, lay a small, rotted shoe. The whisper came again. Emily, louder this time, more insistent. Both girls screamed. The light from the fallen phone cut out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Something thumped inside. A dragging sound like cloth against wood. The smell of meat grew stronger, hotter. Emily reached back blindly, grabbing Mandy's arm. Out, she gasped. Back! But the garage. The door slammed shut. No one was there. They turned, breathless, panicked, trying to get it open, locked, padlocked. But that wasn't possible. They hadn't even brought a padlock. Mandy rattled it helplessly. And then the whisper changed. Not her. You. It came from inside the wall. Emily turned toward the open freezer. The air inside had gone still, like it was breathing. The child's dress swayed slightly on the hook, then it fell, straight down, as if someone had stepped out of it. The dress collapsed onto the floor, empty. Something else exhaled from the room, a heat so sudden and wrong that both girls recoiled. Their backs hit the freezer. The lid opened on its own. The inside glowed white with frost. Steam curled up from the depths. Emily stared at it in horror, not because of what she saw, but because of what she heard. Children, crying. Inside, dozens of voices muffled, weeping, whispering in layered tones. Some were screaming, others just moaned, and beneath them a low growl, not human, like something ancient, buried. "Close it!" Mandy shrieked, lunging forward, but before she could, a hand shot out. Pale, long-fingered, it slammed against the rim of the freezer. Emily grabbed the crowbar and swung. It connected with a sickening crack. The hand dropped, vanishing into the white mist. She slammed the lid shut and jumped on top of it, panting, heart thudding. Silence. Mandy dropped to the floor, sobbing. What the hell is happening? Emily backed away slowly, eyes never leaving. The freezer. That room. It's not just sealed, it's cursed. Mandy looked up, face streaked with tears. What do we do? Emily thought about Julia. The missing girl, the whispers in her closet, the hand, the voices. And now, this room, this shrine, hidden behind a fake wall, still ice-cold decades later. There was one more thing to try. "We burn it," she said, quietly. All of it. They gathered rags, lighter fluid from the shelf, old newspapers from the recycling bin. Mandy kept muttering prayers under her breath, trying not to look at the hook where the dress had fallen. Emily poured lighter fluid across the walls, over the insulation, into the back corners. She struck a match. Flames caught quickly, devouring the paper and licking up the walls. The air inside the room screamed. It wasn't wind, it wasn't pressure. It was a shriek, high and human, that came from inside the wall itself. The room convulsed. Smoke churning out in thick plumes. They ran, kicking the garage door open with all their weight until it finally gave, flooding them in fresh air. They didn't stop running until they were down the street. The fire was put out by the time the parents returned. Neighbors had called the fire department. Mandy's dad was furious, but confused. "Why the hell would you light a fire behind my freezer?" The firefighters tore open the back wall completely and found nothing. No hooks, no shrine, not even a hidden room. The insulation was old, yes, but completely sealed. No second freezer. No dress. Emily showed them the blueprints. The firefighters shrugged, said the previous owners probably updated the plans. Nothing had collapsed. No gas leaks. No damage, just smoke. Mandy's parents grounded her for a month. Emily wasn't allowed back at the house, but that night, when she was finally back in her bed, lights off, door shut, she felt it again, the cold. It started at her feet, crawled up her legs. Her breath fogged the air. She sat up, teeth chattering, and saw her closet door. It was open. Again, she stood, slowly, heart hammering, and this time, it wasn't the hand that appeared. It was a girl, thin, drenched in frost, wearing the same pale blue dress. She stood half in shadow, half in moonlight. Her eyes were hollow. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out until Emily leaned closer. Then she heard it. She fed us to him. Emily froze. Who did? The girl tilted her head, slow and unnatural. A sharp crack echoed from her neck. "She promised us warmth, said the pain would stop, but it never did." Then the girl's body split down the middle, a jagged, frozen wound, opening from forehead to belly. From within the crack, something began to crawl out. Emily screamed. Her mother burst in moments later, but the closet was empty. Again, only the frost remained, curling across the floor like smoke. Cliffhanger. Emily discovers that Julia wasn't the only one taken. The hidden freezer room has existed for generations, maintained by one person in each family, someone chosen. And Mandy's mother might have been the last one to serve what lives inside. She was chosen. Emily didn't go back to school. That week, her mother blamed the fire, blamed Mandy, blamed teenage attention-seeking. But Emily wasn't sleeping, not really. The frost kept coming. Her closet door kept opening. And the girl in the blue dress, Julia, came back every single night. She never spoke again. She just stood there, body split open, leaking something black and cold onto the floor. And each time she came, the frost crept further into Emily's room. By Friday morning, her bedroom window cracked from the cold. Her mum finally scheduled a therapist, but Emily didn't go. Instead, she went back to Mandy's house. This time, she brought gloves, a camera, and salt. She'd read somewhere that salt could trap spirits or purify spaces. She wasn't sure what she believed anymore, but after the freezer, after the frost girl, she wasn't willing to go unarmed. Mandy opened the door with a grim look. Her eyes were puffy, her voice low. "I didn't think you'd come back." "I had to," Emily said. "It's not over." Mandy stepped aside. "You should see something first." They walked through the living room into the den. Mandy's mom was sitting on the couch, flipping through an old photo album, a blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes looked far away, distant. "She's been like this since the fire," Mandy whispered. "Weird, quiet. Sometimes she talks in her sleep." "About what?" "Julia," Mandy said, "and someone named Mr. Frost." Emily froze. "What?" Mandy nodded. "That's what she called him. Said he lives under the bones." I thought she was dreaming, but then I looked through her old things. She pulled out a shoebox from beneath the couch. Inside were a dozen Polaroids, old, faded, the edges curled with time. Emily picked one up carefully. It showed a group of kids, 6 or 7 of them, all wearing pajamas, all in a circle around. A chest freezer, the same freezer. There was a man in the background, tall, bald, wearing a butcher's apron. His hands rested on the freezer lid like it was a podium. Behind him stood someone else, a girl, Mandy's mom. I think she was part of something, Mandy whispered. Some kind of ritual. These were taken in this house. Look at the floor. Same cracks, same vents. Emily flipped the photo over. There was writing on the back. Summer offering. July 1986, she dropped it like it burned. They waited until Mandy's dad left for work before heading back into the garage. The smell of smoke still lingered. But the wall they'd burned, the secret shrine, was gone. It had been patched over with new drywall, too clean, too quick. Emily crouched, tracing her fingers along the edge. There has to be another way in. She stood and opened the chest freezer again. The frost had returned. Thick, white, silent. Mandy didn't speak. She just held up the shoebox of photos. "I think my mom was the last one chosen," she said. "I think this house, it needs someone to keep the door open, to feed it." "To feed what?" Emily asked. "You heard them in the freezer," Mandy said. "The voices, the crying. What if those weren't ghosts?" Emily frowned. "What else would they be?" Mandy hesitated, then whispered, "Remnants." They followed the pipes. It was Emily's idea. If something was still active under the garage, it had to be connected to power. Heat, drainage, something. The garage was built over the original basement, sealed off decades ago after flood damage, according to the permit records. But behind the tool shelves, buried under layers of tarp and junk, was a rusted hatch door. They pried it open. The hinges screamed. A narrow staircase spiraled down into pitch black. Mandy turned on the flashlight. "Emily," she said quietly. "There's no dust." She was right. The steps were clean. The basement hadn't been touched in decades. But someone had maintained it. The walls were lined with old industrial pipes. The air smelled like wet copper and rotting ice. Freezer burn, the kind you taste in your throat. At the far end of the room stood a single wooden chair. Shackles hung from both arms. The floor beneath it was stained black, and behind it, carved into the concrete, were hundreds of names. First names only, all children. Emily ran her fingers over the scratches. "These go back to the 50s. "Look, there," Mandy said. In the far right corner, partially hidden behind an old boiler, was a red metal panel with a dial. Beneath it, a chute, sealed with a hatch. "What is it?" Emily whispered. Mandy stepped closer. "Looks like a delivery. Chute, like the kind they used in morgues." Emily lifted the hatch. It was warm. Suddenly, something inside moved. She dropped it, heart racing. "There's something alive in there." And then a sound filtered out, low, echoing, not quite human, like ice being cracked with a hammer. It rose, slow and deliberate. Krk, thick, krk. It wasn't a sound, it was a laugh. They ran, but at the top of the stairs, Mandy screamed. Her mother stood there, barefoot, wearing the same pale blue dress from the photos. She smiled faintly. "You weren't supposed to go down there." Emily froze. You knew about all of this." Her voice was calm. "Of course. I was the winter girl. Every generation has one." "The what?" Mandy's mother tilted her head. "We feed him, we soothe the cold. If he hungers too long, he leaves the freezer. Comes into the house, into the dreams. We don't want that, do we?" "Julia," Emily snapped. "You gave him Julia." "She was chosen," the woman said. "It's not cruel, it's balance. Some families pass down land, others pass down guardianship." Mandy trembled. "You used me. You let me sleep above him." Her mother's expression turned sad. "You weren't ready. Not yet. But maybe Emily is." Suddenly the air shifted. The frost came again, but faster. Like a storm. It crept up the stairs, across the floor, up the walls. Pipes hissed and cracked. Ice formed instantly on the ceiling above the hatch. From deep below came footsteps. Heavy, wet, getting closer. Emily backed away. "What is that?" Mandy's mother knelt in front of her. "He heard you. He chose you. You opened the door." "No," Emily gasped. "We burned it." "That wasn't the door," she whispered. "It never is." Then, without warning, she reached out and shoved Emily down the stairs. Emily screamed, tumbling. She hit the ground hard. Her breath left her in a gasp, and from the shadows it stepped into view. Not a man. Not a ghost. Something between. It was tall, draped in frozen black skin like butcher's cloth. Its arms were long. Its mouth hung open, rimmed with icicles. Inside were hands, small, childlike, pressing against the back of its throat. Mandy screamed from the stairs. Emily scrambled up, but the thing didn't rush. It walked slowly, deliberately, each step leaving behind cracked, frozen blood. Emily's. A flashlight flickered, then went out. Darkness. Total. She reached blindly for anything, pulling herself toward the wall. Her hand found the chute hatch, still warm. She grabbed the crowbar from her bag and jammed it inside, trying to damage the mechanism. "Emily," Mandy called from above. "He's coming!" The crowbar caught. Sparks flew. Then a hiss. Steam burst from the chute, slamming the hatch shut. The creature stopped. It tilted its head, watching. Then it spoke, 1,000 voices at once. "You are not the one." Emily rose slowly. "Then who is?" It turned and looked up the stairs. Mandy, cliffhanger. Emily realizes Mandy is being groomed to become the next winter girl, the one who keeps the thing in the freezer, fed. But Mandy is beginning to change, and may not want to stop it, the winter girl. Emily didn't remember how they got out. One moment, the thing in the basement was staring up the stairs toward Mandy, its breath frosting the ceiling above. Her, its long arms twitching like it was smelling something sweet. And then the next, the hatch was sealed, the stairs were empty, and Mandy was dragging her out of the garage by the wrist. It was dawn, grey, silent. The trees outside looked dead. Neither of them said a word until they were halfway across the backyard. Then Mandy stopped walking, and Emily noticed Mandy wasn't breathing heavy. She wasn't shaking. Her voice was calm. "He didn't hurt us." Emily blinked. "What?" "He could have," Mandy said, "but he didn't. He spoke to you, Emily. That's rare. And he chose me." "No. Yes," Mandy said. "I saw it in his eyes. He looked through you, but he saw me." Emily stepped back. The air around Mandy felt and colder. They didn't go back to Emily's house. She didn't trust herself to be alone, not with the voices in the walls, not with the dreams, and not with that horrible whisper that had started curling into her ears every time she was about to fall asleep. You opened the door. She was waiting behind it. Emily couldn't tell her mother the truth. She tried once, but her mum just stared at her, confused and exhausted. "This is because of that little girl, isn't it?" she'd said. "The one who died, that poor family. You girls saw something traumatic. You should be resting. I'll call the school." So Emily stayed quiet and watched Mandy get colder. They returned to the basement the next night. Mandy said she had to see him again. Emily begged her not to. "Mandy, your mum is part of this. That man, the thing, it's not just some ghost. It's ancient. It's evil." "No," Mandy said. "He's lonely. That's what my mum told me." Emily stared at her. "Do you even hear yourself?" "He didn't kill Julia." Emily's stomach twisted. "Are you serious?" Her body was found frozen solid inside that freezer. Her soul stuck in my closet. And that thing, it wears kids' hands inside its mouth. "She wasn't chosen," Mandy said softly. "She was sacrificed." "There's a difference." Emily nearly screamed. "You sound like your mum." Mandy didn't respond. She just opened the hatch to the basement again and stepped inside. It was colder than before. Their breath fogged in front of them. The air was wet, and this time there was singing, children's voices, faint in some other language. Emily gripped her flashlight tightly. "If we see that thing again—" "He has a name," Mandy whispered. Emily stopped walking. "What did you say?" "I remembered it. It came to me in a dream. My mom used to hum it when I was a baby. So did my grandmother." "What name?" Mandy turned to her, eyes wide and empty. "Ivanhoe." The name chilled her blood. Emily stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. "That's not a name. That's not human." Mandy smiled. "He's not, but neither was what he protected us from." Emily blinked. "What?" "They used to come up through the vents. They wore skin-like clothing. They whispered in dead languages. They hated children." Emily's head pounded. "Where are you getting this from?" "From my dreams," Mandy said. "From the voices. They don't lie, Emily. They're old. Older than this town. Older than God." Emily backed away slowly. This wasn't Mandy. This wasn't her best friend. That night, Emily dreamed of a field covered in snow. Children were crawling across it, weeping, dragging broken limbs behind them. The sky was black and pulsing, like it was breathing. And in the center of it all stood a tall, thin man in a butcher's apron, holding open a massive freezer door that howled like a throat. Inside it were cities, frozen cities, and her mother's voice whispered behind her ear, "Every door needs a keeper. Every curse needs a key. The winter girl keeps the frost at bay." She woke up screaming and found ice crystals forming on her walls. Emily called a local historian the next day. She said it was for a school project about old town legends. The woman on the phone, Ms. Lane, sounded surprised anyone young still cared. Of course, I remember the old freezer cult. They didn't call themselves that, of course, but people in town, we all whispered it. "What were they really called?" Emily asked. There was a long pause. Then, "They called themselves the Preservers, claimed they were keeping something at bay, said it wasn't a god, not exactly a demon either, just something cold." "Cold?" Emily whispered, "not just in temperature, in feeling, in logic, something ancient, hungry, but not evil the way we think of it." Emily gripped the phone. Ms. Lane continued, "They believed children could appease it, not just by feeding it, but by giving it company, letting it observe their innocence, their decay." "That's sick," Emily muttered. "Yes," Ms. Lane said, "but here's the strange part. When they stopped, winters got worse. Crime spiked. People started freezing in their homes like something snapped." Emily didn't sleep that night because now the closet was open again and Julia was smiling. Mandy stopped going to school. Emily went to check on her. Mandy's mother was gone, so was her dad. The house was dark, all the furniture covered. She found Mandy in the garage, crouched by the freezer, stroking the frost with her bare hand. "You're going to die in there," Emily said. "No," Mandy whispered. "I'm going to live in there, with him. You've lost your mind." "I've found my purpose." Emily stepped forward. "You said you weren't ready, back when this started. Why now?" Mandy turned and looked at her, eyes pale and glassy. "Because now he's waking up, and he needs a bride." Emily tried to burn the house. She waited until Mandy went upstairs. She poured gasoline across the garage floor, into the freezer, along the walls. She lit the match. The fire exploded with a roar, but instantly snuffed out. The air turned freezing, and behind her, the garage door closed on its own. Then came the voice, low, thick, inside her head. "You opened the door. You fed the frost. You are bound." Emily turned. The freezer lid was open again, but now it was a staircase leading down. Mandy was waiting at the bottom, wearing the pale blue dress, holding a child's hand, a little boy, frozen and still. "This is how it always ends," Mandy said. "One girl stays, the other leaves. But this time, I chose differently." Emily backed away. "Don't do this. You were supposed to die, Emily," Mandy said. "That's what the voices told me. But you resisted. You opened doors. You questioned the old ways. That makes you dangerous." Suddenly the frost pulsed, and the air filled with voices, children, hundreds of them screaming, laughing, singing. Mandy stepped forward, lifting her hand, and from the ice a shape rose, Ivanhoe, towering, pale, eyes like broken glass. "Choose," Mandy whispered. "Stay with us, or feed the frost, but you can't escape." Emily clenched her fists, and for the first time, she fought back. Cliffhanger. Emily attempts to destroy the freezer realm from the inside, but Evenhall shows her what really happened to Julia, and the twisted truth behind the preserver's sacrifices. She must face betrayal and decide whether to stop the horror or become part of it. The frost remembers. Emily didn't run. She couldn't, not because of the cold, though her skin was cracking, her fingers numb, but because something deeper in her bones held her still. Fear. No. Recognition. The way you freeze when you see a photo of yourself. In a place you've never been. Mandy stepped down into the frost-soaked cellar, her pale blue dress swaying like frozen mist. Behind her, the boy she held crumbled to frost dust, like he'd never been real. "I tried to save Julia," Mandy said. "I really did. But the frost doesn't want innocence. It wants grief. It feeds on it. It grows inside it." Emily stared at her, throat burning. "You helped it." "I followed the old path," Mandy said. "Just like my mother, just like hers. We didn't create the ritual, Emily. We just remembered it. I'm not like you." Mandy tilted her head as the air thickened with snow that didn't fall. It hovered, hung in place. "You were chosen first," she whispered. "Not me." Emily blinked. "What?" Evenhall moved. Not like a man, like a glacier learning to walk. His hands, long, jointless things, brushed the walls, and the walls screamed with the sound of cracking ice and children's laughter. "Let her see," he said, his voice like breaking glass inside her mind. Then the world around Emily shifted, and she wasn't in the frost cellar anymore. She was in Julia's room, but not as it had been in real life. This room was twisted, parts of the ceiling peeled. Upward like it was breathing. The air was damp with freezer smoke, and Julia stood in the corner, back turned, still, silent. Emily stepped forward. "Julia!" The girl turned, slowly, too slowly, and Emily gasped. Julia's mouth was stitched, shut black wire, blood frozen to her chin, but her eyes begged, "Help me." A whisper scratched through the air. Not Julia's voice, Mandy's. "This is what really happened." The walls peeled back like a book being opened. Emily watched as Mandy, a younger version, 12 years old, crept into Julia's room. She held something in her hand, a mirror, cracked, black-edged. "I'm sorry," young Mandy whispered, "but he says you have to see. Once you see, he can mark you." Julia sat up in bed. "Who's he?" Mandy didn't answer. She held up the mirror. Julia looked and instantly froze. Literally, frost exploded across her skin. Her breath caught. She fell back onto the bed, limbs jerking as if she were drowning in cold. Emily screamed, "Stop!" But the memory kept playing. Mandy sat on the bed, petting Julia's hair. "I told you not to look," she said. "Now you're part of the story." The scene collapsed. Emily was back in the cellar. On her knees, shaking, she looked up at Mandy. "You killed her." "I freed her," Mandy said. "No, you damned her." Mandy's face twitched. "You think I wanted this? You think I didn't fight it? But when I was 6, my mother left me, locked in a deep freezer overnight, just to see if I was strong enough." Emily stared in horror. She said that's how the first Winter Girl was chosen. She said only the cold-hearted survive. Mandy stepped closer. "And I did survive." "Emily, I stopped crying after the first few hours. I made friends in the frost." "You're sick." "No, I'm reborn." Evenhal raised his hand. A wave of cold ripped through Emily. Memories crashing down, her dad's funeral, when she first saw frost form on her bedroom mirror. That therapy session where the room turned silent, and her breath fogged despite the summer heat. Mandy crying the night after Julia's death. Except now, Emily saw it clearly. Mandy had been smiling just beneath the tears. It had all been leading here. The freezer, the whispers, the marking. Emily clutched her chest. There was something under her skin. Cold, alive. "I don't want this," Emily whispered. "You can't make me part of it." "You already are," Mandy said. "You're the final piece. He doesn't want me anymore. I was just the bridge." Emily stared at her. "No." "Yes. He's chosen you. You've felt it, haven't you? The voices, the dreams, the frost on the windows, even when it was 70 degrees out, the way her heart sometimes stopped, just for a second, when she was alone in the dark." Evenhal didn't hunt her. He was becoming her. Mandy stepped forward. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they froze before they reached her chin. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "But you can't stop it, Emily. You either accept the frost or drown in it." Emily backed away, and her foot hit something hard. The mirror, the same black-cracked mirror Mandy used on Julia. It was glowing, calling to her. Voices rose all around them, children whispering her name, but not just whispering, pleading. "Let us go, please, please let us go." Emily picked up the mirror, and in it she didn't see herself. She saw a window into the freezer. But beyond it, something else, the outside, a world where none of this had happened, a world where Mandy had never opened the hatch, where Julia still laughed, where her dad still smiled, a possible world. The mirror cracked further. Emily's hand bled, and Ivanhoe roared. The frost exploded outward. Mandy screamed. The cellar began to split open, as if something was trying to pull it apart from the inside. Emily held the mirror up, stared into it, and whispered, "You fed on our pain, but it's mine now." She turned the mirror toward Ivanhoe. The scream shook reality. Glass shattered in dimensions Emily didn't understand. The air folded inward, and Ivanhoe, the god, the ghost, the glacier, split down the center. Not dead, divided. Half of him poured into the mirror. The other half shrieked like a storm and vanished into frost. Emily woke in the snow, alone. The cellar was gone. The freezer was gone. So was Mandy. So was the house. Just an empty plot cordoned off with old yellow tape, as if none of it had ever existed. But she knew better, because the mirror was still in her hand, and it was still cold, and Julia's voice, faint, but real, whispered, "One piece remains. Cliffhanger: Emily thinks she's free, but the mirror begins to show different versions of herself, all trapped, all doomed. She realizes the freezer wasn't just a place, it was a test, one that cycles through timelines, and only the one who truly destroys the curse can break it for all. The final twist reveals who started it all, and the ultimate sacrifice required. The mirror never forgets. Emily sat on the cold ground, clutching the black-cracked mirror. The shards inside reflected not her face, but endless versions of herself, trapped, screaming, terrified, each one different yet the same, caught in endless cycles of frost and despair. The whisper came again, soft, cruel, undeniable. One piece remains. Her heart hammered. She finally understood. The freezer wasn't just a prison. It was a test, a curse passed down through generations, and she was its final keeper. The truth behind the curse: long ago, a girl named Ilara lived in the village. Ilara was born during the dead of winter, when the frost held dominion over earth and soul. She was gifted, or cursed, with the ability to control the cold, to bind souls in ice. But her power came at a terrible cost. Ilara's family feared her. They locked her in the cellar to die. But Ilara did not die. Instead, she became the frost itself, an eternal, vengeful spirit. She trapped children who wronged others in icy prisons, feeding on their grief and sorrow to grow stronger. The curse passed down through mothers, daughters, sisters, always finding the cold-hearted and the broken. The final test: Emily had been chosen because of her grief, her guilt over her father's death, her loneliness, the way she always felt frozen inside. The mirror was not just a window, but a key. The only way to end the curse was to shatter the mirror from the inside, but that meant entering the frozen world herself, risking losing her soul forever. And not just her soul. All the trapped children. Mandy's ghost appeared beside her. No one wanted this, she whispered, but it's too late to turn back. Emily nodded. Tears froze on her cheeks. She held the mirror tight and whispered, I will free you all. Entering the mirror shimmered. Light became frost. Frost became darkness. Emily was pulled inside. She landed in a blizzard of faces. Julia's stitched mouth, Mandy's frozen tears, the boy from the cellar's icy dust. They reached for her. Help us, they begged. Break the curse. Emily looked around and saw Ivanhal, fractured, fading, the spirit of frost itself. He howled, You cannot escape. The curse is you. Emily shook her head. No, I am more. She pulled out a shard from the mirror's edge, the sharpest one, and raised it high. I choose to break the cycle. The shattering Emily drove the shard into the heart of the frozen world. Ice cracked, souls screamed, not in pain, but in release. Light flooded the mirror realm. Faces smiled as they melted into warmth. Julia laughed. Mandy nodded. The boy reached out, then disappeared. Emily felt the frost leave her bones, the final sacrifice, but as the last shard shattered, a terrible pain tore through her. The curse had one last demand. For the cycle to end, the keeper must stay inside the mirror realm forever. Emily's body crumpled. Her last breath was a whisper. I'm free now, so are you. Outside, the real world. The mirror shattered in Emily's hands. Cold air warmed. The frozen cellar was gone. The house was gone. Only snow remained, pure and silent. Julia's laughter echoed faintly in the wind. Epilogue. The lesson: a new family moved into the empty plot. They found a small black-cracked shard in the snow. No one knew the story, but sometimes at night, when the wind howls cold, they swear they hear a girl's laughter. Warm and free, and the mirror never forgets. The ND